Hello guys, we are going to be doing Germany versus Europe. So yeah, let's get into it. Basically, NATO is not going to be part of this situation as always. So Germany's goal is to get enough manpower to fight against the Soviet Union in the next 10 minutes. Or finally finish invading the Soviet Union. Allies are allowed to help. Let's get into it. So the Social Republic of Germany, the Nazis, suddenly come to Germany and capture it in no time. Now Germany is under a dictatorship. With its $5 trillion budget, it pretty much easily takes out the little countries and such. But Denmark actually holds out for a little while, making it a big fortification zone. And even making it a bigger fortification zone. And now just making the border near Germany a super fortification. That slows it down, but eventually Denmark is still beaten. So yeah, this part of Denmark surrendered, but the peace treaty just made Germany conquer it. Now, the Czech Republic didn't go down that easily either, and then the people are starting to rebel. Poland is dealing with a rebellion also. The Czech Republic goes okay with the rebellion. However, that's only because almost all of the German troops are here. Now that the German troops are there, they capture that. Germany captures the rebellion and the other rebellion near the border, which ultimately puts them at this border, technically not attacking Poland. However, they get very, very mad and take back their land. However, Germany does not like that notion, and yeah, that's all. Now the War of France starts. They thought they could capture the capital like this. However, that was far from the true story. France actually, at the start of the war, pushed in Germany. However, then Germany started to push back and ultimately capturing the capital right here. However, the Battle of France was actually won, so they still weren't exactly killed. Now, France looks done for. Their coast is cut off, and they only have their capital in this little spot right here. However, the only thing that still stands is the French capital. The Battle of the French capital was hard, but it was won since a lot of troops were in there. A lot of troops, and backed up by support from this island, which ultimately gained back France a little bit of its land. The English Channel landed on this part of Germany. However, then Germany took an ultimate push, gathering up all of its soldiers, knocked out the English Channel, knocked out the UK, and basically took down France. To not make a rebellion, they did that, and now they're invading the English Channel. Most landings were done because the England took down many aircrafts in the English Channel. Them trying to go through Ireland only captured this spot, but then they lost significant battles, and then they just gave the British more land. Now, the British weren't thinking about this one thing. They captured Norway and started to attack the islands up here. they also got back Ireland. The islands made landings there, and they made landings there, and the British got destroyed. Now, in this chaos, Spain gets very, very worried and makes an alliance with Morocco and Libya. South Morocco, too. And Italy joins in Monaco. It's called the Anti-German Alliance, made to stop the Nazis once and for all. Obviously, every country really joins this collision. And I know in the last scenario, Germany was actually the bad ideas of Albania made them like a thing, but this is not going to happen. That's not going to happen. This is going to be a big fight. Now it's starting to get 2022 because this started in 2020. The invasion of Ukraine starts, but this time the Nazis step in. And surprisingly, they just take it. Russia obviously gets mad, but they're not fighting the Nazis. So yeah. The Nazis also invade the little things. I forgot what they were called. But Finland also becomes very snowy as it's becoming winter now. So yeah. So the Spanish alliance is growing their influence, but so is Germany, and the Axis powers were formed. The Axis powers were including Romania and Bulgaria. There. Now, the Axis powers don't provide that much support, but they will. Romania will declare war on Moldova, because why not? Unfortunately, they basically just win without any or much resistance. The Spanish Empire tried to claim us part. Well, it's starting to become the Spanish Empire, but it's really just an alliance. This final part of Greece. So yeah. The Axis powers are very strong right now. But surprisingly, Portugal breaks away from the alliance. It's surprising, especially for a country like Portugal. Now, does Portugal 100% break away from everything? Of course not. But their borders aren't exactly looking great right now. There. So yeah, and then they joined the Axis powers. Such a betrayal. Such a betrayal. However, they're one of the weaker Axis powers. Germany is the strongest one influenced by the Axis power. Romania is the second strongest influenced. Bulgaria is the third. They're the least influenced. Sweden gets very worried about this surrounding, kind of, and ultimately fortifies itself. This new color is a sign of Swiss. We are now stronger. You cannot invade us as much now. Haha. They appealed for this island, but obviously Germany said no. They appealed to unite with Switzerland. This is what they thought was going to happen. But since they already drew the borders, Switzerland got mad and decided to declare war. Now, Switzerland had a stronger army, but them getting through and being the attackers was very hard. And soon, even though the freezing weather, Sweden obviously pushed. I'm calling it Switzerland. Oh my God, Switzerland's over here. And speaking of Switzerland, they become in a little pack with Austria. But then, as soon as they hear Germany might invade Austria, they get scared and go out of the pack. Because that's what Switzerland does. They don't want to get hurt. Of course they don't want to get hurt. Who would want to get hurt? Be honest. Yeah, so unfortunately for Austria, Germany actually does end up attacking them, and Switzerland just dodged a bullet. Yep. Austria tries to flee to this island, but they say no. So the last two countries that are even in Europe get destroyed. Hungary barely puts resistance. They were expected to put resistance. Germany doesn't attack Belarus because, Russia. But yeah, Turkey decides to fortify itself. But for now, we are not going to worry about Turkey. They're just doing their own thing, invading countries for some reason. Don't ask that to Turkey because they're going to give you a whole bunch of crap. Yeah, don't ask Turkey that. The Turkishes thought, well, they are getting these borders because of the alliance pact they made. They call it the Ottoman Empire. That's what the leader actually called it because they just made this for a collision. They just made this to rule all of these countries, being honest. The country just weren't expecting it. Most of Saudi Arabia was influenced by this, but not all of it. But eventually it turned into all of it. Some countries were not 100% influenced by it. That's why they're going to have strange borders, especially with this. Yeah. So this is the whole alliance pact. By the time Germany attacks, all of the countries that were even in are going to be united. So here we go. Germany not accidentally, starts a war with the alliance, and the unsuspecting alliance obviously doesn't expect this, and this is pretty much how it goes. Dun, 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 dun. Bulgaria takes Greece, as almost all of the troops in this alliance were at Spain for a big meeting, and this attack was not expected. In this days, the supply routes were cut, everything were cut. However, one of the Axis powers leave to join the other thing, the Ottoman Empire alliance, that basically is just trying to get more powerful for Turkey, but it's also to fight the Nazis. So yeah, after this expansion, obviously the Ottoman Empire, obviously gets a little more worried and starts to. I don't know why. Hold on. Ah! Whatever. Anyways, Afghanistan, a war-torn country, obviously gets accounted in this alliance. However, then Germany mostly just finishes off the Spanish Empire with some battles of the Peninsula actually being successful for the Spanish. Eventually, they were actually taken down. Over here, they get a little more stronger in fortifications, making a new alliance for each. They become the Swedish alliance. After this War of the Peninsula, the Spanish actually push here, and then they start to push into the Spanish capital, one of the Axis powers. The Axis obviously don't like this. However, they finally take out Italy with fierce reinforcement, and Spain is basically done for. However, the Axis actually betray Portugal, even though they're one of the main reasons why this war has lasted for this long. But that was a bad idea, as they still had some territories in Africa, and they were able to hold a little front line. The littlest front line to fight against it. The littlest front line. However, eventually that front line shook, but they took over a lot of islands, actually. They took over naval superiority. That naval superiority sacrificed a lot of their land, and now their land is kind of just islands, since most of their troops are on like Navy boats and such right now. And without any resistance, really. The last couple of things get taken over. Little to no resistance. The Nazis are finally united. Now, the Soviet Union has happened by that guy that was interrupting the video. But, yeah. This looks like the end for Europe. But one thing to encounter about this here and this is a part of this. So this is going to attack this and then this. So what is going to happen is, if a war ever starts, theoretically, they can connect here and obviously win. However, that will not happen for a little. Matter of fact, most of this will have the influence of the Nazis. But same with the Turkish Empire. Not only that, kind of like this. So the last couple of parts of land gets taken out. India, however, formed the collision with Pakistan, forming a civil war. Anyways, this is the split of India. The Social Republic of India and this India will basically be a split. The small border of China was also interrupted by the communism part of the regular India because they knew they didn't want a border with China here. Now, they kind of start to invade the Ottoman Empire. Alright, so this is part 1 of the coalition war. Now, they took this as a peace offering as Turkey didn't want problems. Now, this is the near end of the video, except the invasion of the Soviet Union starts.